In this video, let's dive into the character of Mufasa from The Lion King. Now, we all know that there are many different takes on the backstories of characters, but today, we're gonna focus on the version from the classic movie. Mufasa was born into the royal family of Pride Rock, destined to one day become the king of the Pride Lands. But things weren't so simple for him. He had a younger brother, Scar, who despite having his own desires for power, played a very different role in the kingdom. While Mufasa grew up with the knowledge that he was the heir to the throne, his brother's role was to serve as the leader of the Lion Guard. Now, this position was a big deal because it was all about protecting the kingdom. The leader of the Lion Guard had to ensure the safety of their home and family, and it was a job filled with honor. But things took a turn when Scar returned from the Outlands with a troubling report. He warned of a rogue lion who had posed a serious threat to their kingdom. Scar had fought and defeated this lion, but not without consequences. The battle left him with a permanent scar on his face, something that would forever remind him of the battle. And from that moment on, Mufasa gave his brother the nickname Scar, which was meant to be a reminder of the injury. But what Mufasa didn't realize was that this nickname would end up fueling his brother's bitterness. Scar, feeling humiliated and resentful, began to believe that Mufasa didn't deserve the throne. He thought he was the one who should be king, not his older brother. This set the stage for one of the most tragic and complicated rivalries in Disney history. As the king of Pride Rock, Mufasa really knew how to rule. He did it with a sense of dignity and fairness that earned him the respect of everyone around him. Under his leadership, the Pride Lands thrived. He managed to maintain a perfect balance between predators and prey, ensuring that the land and all its creatures could live in harmony. This wasn't an easy job, but Mufasa did it with wisdom, always thinking about the bigger picture and making sure that everything worked together to keep the kingdom strong and healthy. He wasn't just a king in title. He was a king who understood his responsibilities and the importance of keeping the peace. He was respected by the animals of the Pride Lands, and he led with a sense of fairness that allowed the different species to coexist. His reign wasn't about domination but about maintaining balance, something that showed in how he treated all the creatures under his care. One of the most important relationships in his life was with Sarabi. They were betrothed as part of the monarchy's traditions. But their bond went far beyond that. Their relationship wasn't just a political alliance, it was built on real love and mutual respect. Mufasa and Sarabi were partners in every sense of the word. They shared the responsibility of ruling the Pride Lands, and their connection was one of strength and unity. Together, they guided the kingdom through good times and bad, always supporting each other as they made decisions that affected everyone in their care. Their lives took on a new, incredibly special meaning when they welcomed their son Simba into the world. This moment wasn't just the birth of an heir, it marked the start of a new chapter in the circle of life. Simba's arrival was a sign that the future of the Pride Lands was being passed down to the next generation. For Mufasa, this was a huge responsibility. He wasn't just going to be a father, he was also preparing his son to one day take over as king. Mufasa knew that being king wasn't about power or control, it was about responsibility. So, from the moment Simba was born, Mufasa began teaching him the values he would need to be a great ruler. He instilled in Simba the importance of courage, wisdom, and most importantly, respect for all living creatures. Mufasa knew that Simba's future would require him to understand not just the strength to rule, but the heart to care for the kingdom and all its inhabitants. He wanted to make sure that Simba grew up knowing how to balance being a strong leader with being compassionate and fair to everyone in the Pride Lands. One of the people Mufasa leaned on for support was Rafiki, the royal shaman. Rafiki had a unique role in the Pride Lands. He was not just a wise advisor, but also someone who was deeply connected to the spiritual health of the kingdom. His role was vital, and Mufasa trusted him completely. Rafiki wasn't just an advisor though. He was a friend to Mufasa, someone who understood the weight of leadership and shared in the responsibility of guiding Simba's future. But Scar only grew more resentful with Simba's birth.
Well, I was first in line, until the little hairball was born.
That hairball is my son, and your future king.
Oh, I shall practice my courtesy.
He saw Simba as a threat to his own ambition. He knew that one day Simba would take the throne, and Scar couldn't stand the thought of that. Scar's jealousy and bitterness had been simmering for years, but Simba's birth only made it worse. What's worse, Scar didn't even try to hide his feelings. In fact, he didn't even bother to attend the celebration of Simba's birth, showing just how little he cared about Mufasa's happiness.
Sarabi and I didn't see you at the presentation of Simba.
That was today? Oh, I feel simply awful. Must have slipped my mind.
To Scar, it wasn't about family or the joy of a new life. It was about his own desire for power. This was a sharp contrast to Mufasa's feelings. Even though they didn't get along and their relationship was filled with tension, Mufasa still cared for his brother. One of Mufasa's most memorable and iconic lines was,
Look, Simba, everything the light touches is our kingdom.
On the surface, it might seem like just a metaphor, but it was so much more than that. It wasn't just about the land or the power, it was a promise he made to Simba. He wasn't only talking about the physical kingdom he ruled over, but the responsibility that came with it. Mufasa was telling Simba that one day, he would inherit this kingdom, not just as a ruler, but as someone who would need to make choices for the good of everyone. However, as much as Mufasa seemed like an unshakable and powerful king, even the greatest kings aren't invincible. Tragically, Mufasa's time came to an end far too soon. He made the ultimate sacrifice when he threw himself into danger to save Simba from a life-threatening situation. In that moment, Mufasa showed the world what it truly meant to love and protect his son. He gave everything for Simba's safety, but the cost was his own life. The most heart-wrenching part of this tragic moment was that the one responsible for his death was none other than his own brother.
Long live the king.
Scar had always been jealous of Mufasa, jealous of his position, his strength, and his connection with the kingdom. He wanted the throne for himself, and his death was his twisted way of making that happen. His death wasn't just a loss for Simba, it was a loss for the entire Pride Lands. With Mufasa gone, there was a huge void left behind in the kingdom. The land seemed to lose its balance, and the animals who once looked up to Mufasa now found themselves in a state of uncertainty. His leadership had brought peace and prosperity, and without him, the future seemed uncertain. For Simba, it was a deep personal loss. Losing his father so suddenly and in such a brutal way was devastating. But even in death, he didn't completely leave Simba. His spirit remained, and it continued to guide his son through the darkest times. After Simba fled, unsure of his place in the world, it was Mufasa's memory and his words that would ultimately help Simba realize his true potential. One of the most important lessons he passed down to Simba was to remember who you are. This message stuck with Simba throughout his journey. When Simba returned to the Pride Lands, he was no longer the hesitant exile he once was. The young lion who had run away from responsibility, unsure of how to face the challenges ahead, began to grow into a true leader. He remembered his father's teachings, his wisdom, and the love Mufasa had for him. Simba learned that being a king wasn't about power, it was about making decisions for the greater good, about standing up for what's right, even when it's hard. Simba's journey to reclaim the throne was about more than just taking back his rightful place as king. It was about discovering who he truly was and what he was capable of. Mufasa's death may have left a void, but his legacy lived on in Simba, shaping the young lion into the brave and wise king he would become.